At its absolute peak, the British Empire controlled roughly 26% of all land on Earth and governed nearly 500 million people. That is 1 in every 4 human beings alive at the time, all answering to a single crown sitting in London. No empire in the history of civilization has ever matched that geographic footprint. But here is the part that will genuinely change how you think about power. The British Empire was not even close to the most dominant force relative to its era. And that distinction belongs to someone most people never expect. In the next 10 minutes, you are going to travel across 5,000 years of human history and discover which empires truly shaped the world. We will look at the raw numbers, the military innovations, the economic systems, and the cultural legacies that made certain empires not just powerful, but genuinely world-altering. We will cover the Mongols, the Romans, the Ottomans, the Persians, and several others. But stay with us until the end, because the empire that arguably had the most lasting impact on modern civilization is one that rarely tops these lists. To understand imperial power, you first have to understand what made an empire in the ancient world. Before gunpowder, before iron-hulled ships, before telegraphs, controlling territory meant something entirely different. Supply lines stretched over impossible terrain. Communication between a general in the field and a king at home could take weeks or even months. Keeping diverse peoples with different languages, religions, and customs loyal to a central authority required something far more sophisticated than brute military force. The empires that survived long enough to matter were the ones that solved that problem. And solving it required administration, law, infrastructure, and trade. Military conquest was only the beginning. The Achaemenid Persian Empire, founded by Cyrus the Great around 550 BCE, was arguably the first truly sophisticated empire in recorded history. At its height under Darius I, it stretched from the Balkans in the west to the Indus Valley in the east, covering approximately 5.5 million square kilometers. That was around 44% of the world's population at the time living under Persian rule, the highest population percentage of any empire in history. What made Persia remarkable was not just its size but its system. Cyrus introduced a revolutionary concept called tolerance. Conquered peoples were allowed to keep their customs, languages, and religions. The famous Royal Road, stretching over 2,700 kilometers, connected the empire's far corners and allowed messages to travel in just 7 days. For 500 BCE, that was extraordinary. Persia did not just conquer the ancient world. It organized it. But here is what nobody talks about when comparing ancient empires. The Greeks defeated Persia militarily at Marathon, Salamis, and Thermopylae, and Alexander the Great eventually dismantled the entire Achaemenid structure. Yet the Persian administrative model survived. Alexander adopted it. His successors adopted it. Even the Roman Empire borrowed heavily from Persian provincial governance. Defeating an empire on the battlefield is one thing. Erasing its ideas is nearly impossible. Rome, of course, demands its own conversation. The Roman Empire at its peak under Emperor Trajan in 117 CE covered approximately 5 million square kilometers and included around 70 million people, roughly 21% of the global population at the time. But the raw numbers only tell part of the story. Rome's true power was cultural and legal. Roman law forms the backbone of virtually every legal system in Europe, Latin America, and much of the world today. The Romance languages, Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, Romanian, all descend directly from Latin. The concept of a republic, the idea of codified law applied equally to citizens, the architectural ambition that still draws tourists to the Colosseum and the Pantheon, these are Roman inheritances that have never truly faded. Rome fell in 476 CE. Its ideas are still running the world 15 centuries later. Now consider the Mongol Empire, and the numbers become almost incomprehensible. Between 1206 and 1368, the Mongols assembled the largest contiguous land empire in human history, covering over 24 million square kilometers at its height. Genghis Khan and his successors conquered territory stretching from Korea to Poland, from Siberia to Vietnam. They wiped out an estimated 40 million people. Some historians place that figure even higher, which may have actually reduced the global population by around 10%. Entire cities were erased. The irrigation systems of Mesopotamia, which had sustained civilization for thousands of years, were deliberately destroyed and never fully recovered. But here is the paradox that makes the Mongol Empire so fascinating. In the wake of absolute destruction, the Mongols accidentally created something remarkable. The Pax Mongolica, the Mongol Peace, established safe trade routes connecting China to Europe for the first time in history. The Silk Road reached its maximum activity under Mongol protection. Ideas, goods, technologies, and diseases flowed across Eurasia at an unprecedented rate. The Black Plague traveled those same roads. So did paper money, gunpowder, and astronomical knowledge. The Mongols did not build a lasting civilization, but they connected the ones that already existed, and that connection permanently changed the trajectory of human history. The Ottoman Empire, lasting from approximately 1299 to 1922, represents one of the most durable power structures ever assembled. At its peak under Suleiman the Magnificent in the mid-1500s, the Ottomans controlled southeastern Europe, Western Asia, and North Africa, a territory of around 5.2 million square kilometers. Istanbul, formerly Constantinople, became one of the greatest cities on earth, a crossroads of commerce and culture that rivaled anything in Europe or Asia. The Ottomans held the critical choke points of world trade for centuries, controlling access to the eastern Mediterranean and the routes connecting Europe to Asia. When the Ottomans raised tariffs on eastern trade goods, it was partly that economic pressure that drove European powers to search for alternate sea routes to Asia. Columbus sailed west in 1492 trying to bypass Ottoman territory. The Ottoman Empire, simply by existing and controlling its borders, accidentally triggered the European age of exploration. The Mughal Empire deserves recognition here as well. At its height in the early 1700s, the Mughal Empire controlled most of the Indian subcontinent and generated an estimated 25% of global GDP, more economic output than all of Europe combined at that time. The Taj Mahal is just the most famous of a cultural legacy that reshaped art, architecture, music, and cuisine across South Asia. But the Mughals also illustrate one of the central lessons of imperial history. Economic wealth without military adaptation is a fatal vulnerability. By the mid-1700s, the British East India Company, operating with better weapons and organizational structures, began dismantling Mughal authority piece by piece until nothing remained. And that brings us back to Britain. The British Empire at its 1920 peak was genuinely unprecedented in geographic scale. But its most lasting contribution may not be territory at all. The British spread the English language to every corner of the globe. Today, English is spoken by approximately 1.5 billion people and serves as the dominant language of international business, science, aviation, and diplomacy. The common law legal tradition, parliamentary democracy, and modern banking and financial systems all carry deep British fingerprints. The world's current geopolitical map was drawn largely by British cartographers and diplomats. Modern borders across Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia reflect British colonial decisions made in the 19th and early 20th centuries, decisions whose consequences are still generating conflict today. So which empire was truly the most powerful? The honest answer is that the question depends entirely on what you measure. If you measure geographic footprint, Britain wins. If you measure population percentage, Persia takes the crown. If you measure sheer military terror and short-term transformation, the Mongols have no rival. If you measure legal and cultural durability, Rome makes a compelling case. And if you measure economic dominance relative to the rest of the world, the Mughals were extraordinary. Every great empire solved the problem of its era, and every great empire eventually created the conditions for its own collapse, whether through overextension, internal corruption, technological stagnation, or the rise of a more adaptive competitor. What connects every empire on this list is something worth sitting with. None of them thought they would end. Before you go, if you learned something valuable today, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to History Vault YT for a brand new video every single day. We will see you in the next one.